For our next speaker, let me check my agenda. Oh God, it's me again. Sorry about that, folks. We're going to talk about something that's maybe not the most exciting aspect of all the work we do, but it's important for quite a few different reasons. And I hope that I can, convey the value of that to you today. Metadata. I think some of you probably know what that means in general, but it's still maybe a bit cloudy, and that's okay. But it's it's not your data itself; it's the data behind your data. As I mentioned before, and Dave reiterated, the amount of data that's collected in this space is pretty wild. It's very impressive what's out there. And one of the things that is important is knowing what other people are doing, so we don't do the same exact thing. It's important to kind of let's not just be too repetitive. Let's share information, work smarter, and try to run our programs effectively. Given the budget crunches that we've had in recent years and that are expected, so being able to spend money wisely on that, the key monitoring areas is just really important. We send out a request for metadata just so we can really see that big picture of what's being monitored. Again, for this exercise, we don't ask for your data itself, but just the metadata. If you want to share data, we're happy to accept it and as appropriate, post it. But this is all about just the metadata. Our original goal for this is to put it into an interactive map where you can select sites and look for different parameters and really help understand, answer questions you might have about monitoring and what's happening with things of your interest. And so it really helps you understand what's out there from even before you start your own data collection. So this gets back to kind of some of the classic who, what, where, when, and in this case, how frequently of what's being collected. It's acronym soup for every organization that's out there collecting. It's just a wide variety of groups out there collecting data. We categorize it in one of our fields just to define kind of where that data is being collected. So, a variety of aquatic habitats. There's some, riparian sampling for restoration sites, and then there's a lot of meteorological data collected as well that could be useful for your project. So we try to break that down into categories. We have categories for the parameters of data that's collected. It's pretty broad. Again, this is not just water quality. So we're capturing, all those water quality parameters that are typical, probably in the minds of some, maybe too detailed. We could simplify it a little bit and just ask for nutrient data versus each specific parameter, but I think it can be used both ways, where you can sort and look for just those general categories, but if you need, you can look into the fine details of what exactly is being measured. But there's also, bacterial sampling, fisheries work, algae, sediment, and many other things. So we're trying to get the bigger picture beyond just water quality. The information that we're seeking is really about monitoring at a specific spot. We know there's so much else out there. For the simplicity and purposes of our map, we've focused on just those point locations, but all this reach level monitoring, LiDAR flights, remote sensing, there's so much else that's collected that we just can't capture here without making it a much different project. So I just want to mention that this is part of the monitoring story. One of the things, we get a lot of details in the metadata that we're capturing. In general, we just kind of want to know what month you started monitoring for a particular parameter and what month you end. But obviously different programs are very different in their approach. We also try to categorize, how frequently that data is being collected. So much data now is continuous, which is really great, or at least I say continuous, but it's, maybe every half hour or something. And then we try to break it down also into, kind of more than 12 times a year, 4 to 12, 1 to 3, just to get a general sense of, how much data is really being captured within those months where you're doing monitoring. Of the big who, what, where, when, we don't ask why during the survey. We know there's lots of different reasons why you're out there collecting data. They may vary depending on the parameter or program or project. But, also like, raise your hand if you filled out this spreadsheet before. Okay, it's complicated. I get it. So, we just didn't want to make it worse. So it just, we haven't asked that why, but stay tuned. We'll talk about that after the break. One of the things that, that we do, we send it out, our request to specific people. Partly not to just, spam everybody out there, and have like multiple people from the same program trying to both report. We want to kind of consolidate this and make it easier for all the partners. So we put it out specifically to some people. Many people thankfully have just returned their form with their information. We'll help validate that, make sure it's, fits appropriately, and then get it, prepped and for processing and uploading to the database. We work with a lot of folks who, don't quite fill out the sheet, but they send in like their monitoring plan or a table of their monitoring sites, and then we'll get that into our format, in our database. We definitely want to help there. And then there's many folks who haven't responded. I get it. It's there's so much work that we're all doing right now. We can't provide funds to you fill this out, unfortunately. But really hope you understand the value of it and can help give us something. So if we haven't requested information from you yet, we missed you. We'd love to, find out your information. So please reach out to me if you think you have information here that we can use. That would be really great. And if you, just haven't responded yet, we'll be following up again. Really hope you're able to provide that information to us relatively soon, because we have to get this process going so we can get back, looking at this information and then get our monitoring plan revised in short order. So there's a timeliness to this. Really need to wrap this up in the next, honestly, like next week or two at probably the realistic schedule. So looking back historically at the times we've surveyed, we have 4 different years that we've captured in our existing interactive map. And just the amount of information that's in there is, like I said, it's pretty amazing. Nearly 40 organizations have contributed this information. Almost 2,000 stations that are unique to an organization, a site. So it's, there's just so much information to parse through. It's pretty incredible. Like I said earlier, we break it down to quite a few different parameters or activities of monitoring, so we can get really dialed in to understand what's happening. And when we take that combination of one organization collecting data at one station or parameter in a particular year with over 13,000 records, so really can be a powerful tool to learn more about what's happening. I apologize, I think earlier, for the complexity of the spreadsheet and the lack of funding for it. And I just want to reiterate, like, we want to work with you with whatever you can send us. So, we don't want to make this too challenging. So let us help you with this. We realize that some groups may not see much of an incentive to respond. I get that, but there's big picture value to this group, to everyone who's trying to work on planning efforts. And there's also value to researchers who are trying to find out like where particular data sets are, or God, is there a gap here for monitoring? Like, how do we work this out? We also have a real concern that we've heard from many people about, God, I don't want to give out my lat longs. I understand that, whether it's vandalism or theft or anything like that, we don't want that to happen. So we definitely work with partners who have those concerns and, can provide like just an approximate lat long or something that just at least is still representative of the site. So any way we can do that to help, reduce that risk, I think this is worthwhile. So better to get that, estimate than to not have the metadata itself. Kind of some challenges for us is it's no fault, because we're here trying to promote coordination and collaboration, but that makes kind of this metadata request a little more complicated for us. When there's this big collaborative effort, who's going to be the one to report it? We don't want to have multiple people trying to report it, or people assuming, oh, I thought so-and-so was going to report it. So, that makes it a little more challenging. We try to have some side conversations with people to say, kind of, hey, have you addressed this part, this little project? But, sometimes there's collaboration we don't know about. So, there may be some gaps there because of that. And, it's challenging also for us in like reaching out to each of the projects, because there's gonna be a certain person in a program who might have that information. Just the number of national forests, in different ranger districts that might have data or, different departments within an organization. So, we want to be able to try and get as complete of a picture as we can. But, there's just a lot of people involved. As I said earlier, we don't have metadata for, every organization or every organization for each year. So there's some incompleteness to this, but we hope it paints, a pretty good picture of what's happening. And if your information isn't there, let's try to get it in there so we can add value and get more clarity to that big picture. Some things that I think helpful is, once you've filled out the survey, it's going to be a lot easier to fill out the next time. A lot of monitoring programs don't have a lot of change over time. We're collecting a lot of legacy data. So, sometimes it's as simple as, yep, no changes in your email reply. I talked about kind of having this bigger picture of the monitoring effort and, for folks who, are trying to, spend their money wisely and they want to look for, where the gaps in monitoring or where there's redundancy, to understand what our priorities moving forward are. That's really important for efforts that happen like with the climate integrated fisheries restoration and monitoring plan. Many of us in the room worked for years on that process, a collaborative process to try to understand, what our monitoring and restoration priorities are. And so, this metadata set was one of the first things that, Clint Alexander asked for, and it helped feed in a lot of their maps and provide that background information for them to help plan this effort. And, what's happening now with Pacific States and them working on then kind of the follow-up to the IFRMP. Again, we've shared that information and we hope that it's helpful in trying to plan and work through understanding the priorities. So that bigger picture part, and then, we want this data to be useful for you as well. So, there's many ways that you can use it just to, like I said, identify other data sets that might be useful, or, maybe we can stop monitoring here if this group is, and, we know their quality control procedures, so we can trust that data. We know they'll get it out in a reasonable amount of time to be available for us. So, there's ways we can help, again, just have this help collaboration and, encourage that data sharing. So it's really important, more so than probably ever has been. So I mentioned the monitoring location metadata map. It's on our KBMP website. It's something where you can, go in and you can select, particular parameter, and then it'll pop up and have just those, parameters displayed. Then you can see that spatial coverage of where the monitoring is occurring, when you zoom in and really get the details. It's not a perfect process, not a perfect map. You have to click on each station to get the metadata for it, to get it to kind of show up in a pop-up and then download it. So it's not, it definitely, there could be some ways to improve it with more money. And, in it, you can't really sort by, some other things that, would be helpful, but I only want data for 2015, or I only want, what does this organization collect? We can't quite sort it in the map that way. But we recognize the value and importance of that. So we have taken all the data from the database that feeds the map, and on our website for the monitoring locations, we have basically an Excel file you can download, and it's got all the same stuff, all the same metadata. And for all of us who've used Excel for years, it's got a lot of ways to work with the data. Even something as simple as like, I want to sort on this field, or I want to filter for just this parameter. It's a much easier way, and in a lot of senses, than pulling this data from the map itself. So, I hope that's something that you guys, if you have any interest in this all, you can download that and be able to, to use it. It might especially help for, the folks who are going to be at the fisheries coordination meeting next week, to try to talk about priorities. So, hint, wink, wink, it's a good resource for you. I don't know, has anyone worked with this spreadsheet before? All right, Eli, thank you. That's all right. Our student committee members stepping up. So, there's just a lot of good information there. I can go through a few examples. I don't want to bore you, but just if you want to sort on, I want information just for the Shasta River and just for a particular year, and I want to see who's doing, nutrient sampling, or where the water temperature probes are, or any of those questions. You can filter down and sort and do these these multiple ways to kind of compress the data into just what you're interested in. So it's something that can be really valuable. One thing we're also in the process of doing is trying to update some of the fields that are a little bit outdated, whether that's a particular contact person is retired, or email has changed, or your organization's website URL is different, or things like that. We want to try to keep those updated within a reasonable amount of effort. So that's going to be something we'll be addressing as soon as we get the 2024 data uploaded. So want to keep it updated and useful. So I mentioned it was important for the IFRP, and it's going to be helpful for the Klamath Basin Collaborative Monitoring Plan that Nancy and her team is working on here as well. And I said earlier, the water quality monitoring plan we're going to be working on, and this all feeds into some of these bigger picture planning efforts. So besides the ability to help you in the individual level of understanding what's being out there. So that's about it summary wise. We may or may not be using this tool a little bit in the breakout session. I guess that's up to you. But if you have a laptop and want to go to our website, go to the monitoring location page, and click on that Excel file to download it, it could be a good resource for you for after the break. So, all right, thanks everyone. Speaking of breaks, well, let me see. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, Mike.
Randy, do you have a URL for that form piece that we want to fill out? Is it online? Is it on the website?
The form.
Metadata form.
I can send it to you because we kind of have to cater it to each group. We have a template for it. I guess I can post the template to the website. But if you haven't reported and want it, just email me or anything like that. Get in touch. We'll get it to you. Any other questions about the awesomeness of metadata? Try not to oversell it. All right. Well, let's take a break.